Good evening, I'm Klaudia Czerwińska and you're watching World News Tonight live from Warsaw. In the event that Russia is not ready to make a deal to end the war, then the United States is fully prepared to impose a very strong round of powerful tariffs, which would stop the bloodshed, I believe, very quickly, said U.S. President Donald Trump during his address at the United Nations earlier on Tuesday. This statement came right before his meeting with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. We will bring you more on that later in the program, but first, let's see our other top headlines of the day. Moldova arrests pro-Kremlin agents of influence prior to a crucial parliamentary election. As multiple European countries recognize Palestinian statehood, the stance of the U.S. remains unchanged. Danish Prime Minister says that Russia's involvement in drone sightings over Scandinavian airports cannot be ruled out. The United Nations General Assembly opening debate saw U.S. President Donald Trump not only boast about his domestic and international accomplishments, but also critique his allies' approach towards putting economic pressure on Russia. The American president even shared his views on Europe's green energy push and illegal migration and his frustrations with what he views as the UN's inaction. Franciszek Pilis has more.
Donald Trump, President of the United States of America.
After numerous calls for increased U.S. participation in pressuring Russia to end its war on Ukraine, U.S. President Donald Trump outlined what, in his view, needs to be done for Washington to tighten its economic screws on Moscow.
In the event that Russia is not ready to make a deal to end the war, then the United States is fully prepared to impose a very strong round of powerful tariffs, which would stop the bloodshed, I believe, very quickly. But for those tariffs to be effective, European nations, all of you are gathered here right now, would have to join us in adopting the exact same measures.
He also underlined the importance of targeting buyers of Russia's energy products, including those who claim to support Kyiv in the long run.
China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil. But inexcusably, even NATO countries have not cut off much Russian energy and Russian energy products.
Donald Trump's critique of his European allies didn't stop there. He also shared his thoughts on the EU's approach towards illegal migration and green energy, giving mileage to far-right narratives in Europe.
If you don't get away from the green energy scam, your country is going to fail. And if you don't stop people that you've never seen before, that you have nothing in common with, your country is going to fail. I'm the President of the United States, but I worry about Europe. I love Europe. I love the people of Europe. And I hate to see it being devastated by energy and immigration.
Without naming names, Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva criticized Trump for his affinity for imposing tariffs, visa restrictions and financial sanctions on Brazil in response to the trial and conviction of Brazil's former president Jair Bolsonaro for plotting a coup after he lost the 2022 election.
Attacks on sovereignty, arbitrary sanctions and unilateral interventions are becoming the rule.
Donald Trump has announced he will participate in a slew of meetings on the UN General Assembly's sidelines, including with his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky, aimed at forcing Russia to the negotiating table. For TVP World, Franciszek Pilis.
And right before we went live, President Trump held a conference with his Ukrainian counterpart Volodymyr Zelensky, saying that NATO countries should shoot down Russian aircraft if they enter NATO airspace, shortly after NATO nations condemned Moscow for violating Estonian border. Let's move on. With Moldovan elections fast approaching, the country's police have made arrests as part of an organized clampdown on pro-Russian actors employed to sway the upcoming parliamentary vote. But the election is not just about EU accession. It is also a power struggle about whether Moldova will grow closer to the West or become ensnared in Russia's web of manipulation. Our Balkan correspondent Paweł Trzaskowski has this report.
Pneumatic and hunting weapons, ammunition and cash in various currencies. These are some of the objects secured by the Moldovan police during 200-some searches across the country. 74 people allegedly trained by Russian secret services were detained.
The training sessions, including self-training, had a tactical purpose. preparing to destabilize and provoke mass disorder in connection with the current electoral process under the supervision of foreign instructors.
Plots to incite violence in Moldova are a new addition to Moscow's disruptive arsenal.
We see more, let's say, physical, kinetic things being organized, not just mere online disinformation and giving people money.
And officials are preparing to counter more such threats as general elections draw near.
The Kremlin is pouring hundreds of millions of euros to buy hundreds of thousands of votes on both banks of the Dniester River and abroad. People are intoxicated daily with lies. Hundreds of individuals are paid to provoke disorder, violence and spread fear.
Ahead of Sunday's ballot, the projected winner varies depending on the pollster. The ruling Party of Action and Solidarity, founded by Maia Sandu, has kept Moldova on a steady pro-European path for 4 years and is now challenged in the polls by the Patriotic Bloc, an openly pro-Russian ensemble. The bloc benefits from votes sponsored by the Kremlin. It is estimated that in last year's presidential election and EU accession referendum, almost 10% of all the votes cast were bought with Russian money through a system called Shaw Network, a scheme created by fugitive Moldovan oligarch Ilan Shaw, now hiding in Moscow. This corruption, along with propaganda and disinformation campaigns launched by the Kremlin, reinforces pro-Russian sentiments prevalent in many regions of the country.
They totally believe that actually Russia is right, Russia needs to run to this place and so on and so forth, and you can threaten them with the war, with the limitation of human rights and so on and so forth. They don't care.
But for those unwilling to vote for socialists or communists, there are alternatives to the ruling Party of Action and Solidarity. These parties present a pro-European agenda, but are believed by some to have connections with Russia.
They use different kind of, they propose different kind of choices, like, for example, Alternativa, political party, like Renato Usati, a little bit.
These two parties, Alternative and Renato Usati's Our Party, could make it to the parliament along with the Party of Action and Solidarity and the Patriotic Bloc. They are expected to become kingmakers, as none of the leading parties is predicted to be able to govern independently. And their pro-European intentions will be tested once they become a coalition partner of one of the camps. Paweł Trzaskowski for TVP World.
20-plus countries ready to send medical aid to Gaza. The announcement comes as more and more nations are recognizing Palestine as a state, including France, Belgium and the UK. But as pressure is mounting on Israel, not everyone in Europe is willing to take that stance in fear of alienating the US, which firmly stands behind Israel. Kazimierz Wysiak reports.
This is not a cemetery, but for many Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, it's too dangerous to carry the bodies of their loved ones to proper burial sites. Instead, they're forced to bury them near the hospital.
My son. I lost my son, the dearest of my children. Every day it's from here to there. You don't know where to go. In the south we die, and here we die.
According to Akled, an independent violence observer, every 15 out of 16 Palestinians killed in Israel's renewed offensive in Gaza have been civilians. And as the UN General Assembly has gathered in New York, more and more Western countries are recognizing Palestine as a state to pressure Israel into stopping the fighting.
This is why, loyal to my country's historic commitment to the Middle East for peace among Israeli people and Palestinian people, I declare that France recognizes today the state of Palestine.
While Palestine is now recognized as a state by close to 80% of all UN countries, not everyone in Europe is ready to take such a step.
We have said that Danish recognition of Palestine will come when there is a negotiated two-state solution, and that is a long way off when you look at what is happening.
Disastrous humanitarian situation aside, there is still concern for the Israeli hostages taken by the Hamas terrorist group in the attack on October 7th, 2023.
Release the hostages now. Just release the hostages now.
Israel's close ties with the US don't make it easy for European governments to criticize Israel's military operation either.
The unwillingness to alienate United States of America and its current administration is very much visible in a stance of some countries. You've mentioned Denmark, but we may also mention the Baltic states.
But for many Europeans, politics don't really matter. According to the latest opinion polls, the majority of Polish people don't choose any side in the conflict. And almost 70% would like to see their government send humanitarian aid to Gaza. Canada and more than 20 European countries, including Poland, are now urging Israel to reopen the medical corridor.
We, the undersigned, stand ready to provide support in the form of, for example, financial contributions, provision of medical staff or equipment needed for the treatment of patients from Gaza in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem.
But despite the diplomatic pressure on Israel growing,
Gaza must be rebuilt, the Palestinian economy must be relaunched.
The offensive in Gaza sees no end. For TVP World, I'm Kazimierz Łysiak.
Even though Russia was warned at the UN Security Council by the Polish foreign minister not to continue its provocations, Monday brought about another incident where Moscow's involvement is heavily suspected. Multiple drones have crossed into Danish and Norwegian airspaces, leading to the two busiest airports in Scandinavia being shut down. The Danish Prime Minister called the violation the most serious attack on critical infrastructure in Denmark yet. Anastasia Yanchenko has more in her latest report.
Authorities in several countries vowed strong reactions after suspicious drones flew over two of Scandinavia's busiest airports in Copenhagen and Oslo. The airports were closed for hours, stranding tens of thousands of passengers. Regional authorities in both countries have launched an investigation, but it's still unclear how many drones were involved or where they came from.
Based on the drone's way of operating and the amount of time they spent over the target, we have concluded that there is probably what we call a capable actor behind the use of these drones.
The Danish Prime Minister dubbed the situation the most serious attack on critical infrastructure in Denmark's history.
It's clear the authorities are taking this very seriously, and I do not think that anyone can see the events that took place a few hours ago in Copenhagen, independently of everything else happening in Europe. In any case, I cannot reject in any way that it could be Russia.
Norway points to the scale of the problem.
Last year, we detected up to 1,500 drones near our airports.
The problem is not limited to unmanned aircraft. 3 Russian jets recently violated Estonian airspace, prompting strong reactions from European leaders, including Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk.
We will not hesitate to shoot down any flying object that violates our territory and flies over Poland. There is no room for discussion on this matter.
Such incidents raise concerns about the security of Europe's strategic infrastructure, including that of Poland. Poland was the first NATO country to be threatened by Russian drones. On September 10th, Russian drones violated Polish airspace. The incursion led to the closure of several airports, including 2 in Warsaw.
We are doing our best to be prepared on this kind of situation. And in these cases, we are implementing the special procedures to manage properly the Polish airspace.
Following the incidents, the European Commission began preparations for building a drone wall, a defense system along the bloc's eastern flank to deter Russia and respond quickly to airspace violation. After Monday's incident, Denmark joined the initiative alongside Estonia, Latvia, Finland, Lithuania, Poland, Romania and Bulgaria.
For those who still doubted the need to have a drone wall in the European Union, well, here we get another example of how important it is. The latest attacks in Romania, in Poland, in Estonia, now in Denmark, 4 member states have been targeted.
Slovakia and Hungary, despite sharing a border with Ukraine, were not included. Meanwhile, the Kremlin has denied any involvement in the incidents, calling the claims unfounded accusations. Anastasia Yanchenko, TVP World.
This latest development in the world of technology could mark the beginning of a new revolutionary chapter for a Polish-based AI startup. Nvidia, the world's most valuable company, is teaming up with 11 Labs, an AI startup that specializes in voice recognition technology. What could this mean for Poland's burgeoning AI sector? Maciej Wilowski went out looking for an answer to this question in his report.
On Tuesday, Nvidia, the world's most valuable publicly traded company worth $4.5 trillion, said it would team up with 11 Labs, an AI startup with Polish roots. The startup, now based out of London and New York, was co-founded in 2022 by Polish-born machine learning engineers Piotr Dąbkowski and Maciej Staniszewski. Nvidia's decision to partner with 11 Labs was based on what it said was the startup's groundbreaking work in voice recognition technology.
Whenever my voice is delivered digitally using artificial intelligence, it's the 11 Labs platform that I'm using. It's 11 Labs as I'm channeling my voice and my speech to. So I really appreciate that. Thank you for everything that you do.
Hosts of valuable capabilities. It turns out
voice recognition software has important applications for AI, smart home and mobile devices such as Alexa and Siri, and is used in dubbing for movies and TV shows. Poland is an emerging hub for AI investments, with the expertise and university training programs needed to accommodate an AI boom.
Our universities, such as University of Warsaw and the Warsaw Polytechnics, as well as Kraków, Wrocław, Poznań, these are very strong centers for digital innovations. So we're strong on the know-how and mind power front.
Investments by global tech giants and companies specializing in AI could augment this know-how. In February, Google announced billions in new investments into Poland's AI sector.
Generative AI could increase Poland's GDP by 8% over the next 10 years. We want to help people access the opportunities technology creates, so we are expanding our training programs to train 1 million Poles in AI skills.
Investments like these could help reverse years of underinvestment in research and development after the fall of communism.
Poland has been struggling for the last couple of decades with properly and adequately funding R&D as such. It can be attributed to other priorities that we had to face after the fall of communism. Science wasn't always the top one priority.
That's changing, however, with massive government-sponsored investments like the Baltic AI Gigafactory, a public-private partnership launched in collaboration with the Baltic states.
The Baltic AI Gigafactory project is one of the most ambitious artificial intelligence initiatives in Central and Eastern Europe. Together with Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, we have decided to create a transnational AI processing and developing center that will serve as the technological heart of the region.
Though much work remains to be done, Poland has the potential to be a regional leader in AI. Maciej Wilowski for TVP World.
As the Russian violations continue, the EU is soon to vote on the introduction of its 19th package of sanctions on Russia for its aggression in Ukraine. To talk about the new sanctions, if they have a chance of succeeding and how they will affect Europe, I'm joined by Michał Baranowski, Polish Deputy Minister of Development and Technology. Good evening and welcome to World News Tonight. Thank you for joining.
Good evening. Great to be with you.
Pleasure's all mine. So Friday, September 19th, the EU proposed 19th package of sanctions on Russia to be voted this coming Friday. What do you think are the most severe repercussions for Russia if that package came into force?
Look, this is another powerful package that will limit ability of Russia to continue the war. The squeeze is on. There are a number of measures that will be particularly severe. The few that I would underline is the fact that European Union will limit the time that EU still imports any fuel from Russia, including LNG and oil. The transition periods will be only 6 months long for short-term contracts, and by January 2027, all of the contracts on gas will be gone. The other important aspect of the package will be limits on the so-called shadow fleet that continues to operate across the seas and with Russian oil especially, and that will put a squeeze on the Russian budget that funds the war in Ukraine. So those are some of the main provisions of the package that we are finalizing at the moment.
I would like us to revisit the meeting between President Donald Trump and President Volodymyr Zelensky that took place over 30 minutes ago. Mr. Trump said, I quote, "Viktor Orban is my friend. I think Orban will stop buying Russian oil," end quote. The package has to be voted unanimously by all the member states. Do you think that Donald Trump will be actually capable of speaking to Viktor Orban and convincing him into supporting this package, especially that Mr. Trump actually voiced it very clearly today at the UN that Europe has to put more pressure when it comes to dealing with Russian energy sector?
Look, it's a very clear message from the President of the United States to his close political ally. And I think this message must be heard loud and clear in Budapest. It's a message that also comes very clearly to Budapest from across European capitals. I'm confident that also Hungary will join the fold when it comes to this package. It is helpful to have United States and President Trump personally to make this case very clearly also to the Hungarian government and Prime Minister Orban himself. And yes, I think that's good news. That's something that is again embraced across Europe, and we just need the last member states to get on board of this critical proposal.
So there's also this argument that landlocked countries such as Slovakia and Hungary, they might not have an alternative choice when it comes to dealing with Russia within the energy sector. Do they have an alternative choice? And I mean, do they have a choice, or they perhaps are willing participants when it comes to dealing with Russia as of now? What's your opinion?
I don't want to speak on their behalf, but let's just point to geographic considerations. Slovakia and Hungary are not the only landlocked countries. That there are other countries that are landlocked, and I can maybe bring here an example of the Czech Republic that was able to diversify away from any Russian oil and LNG. So this can be done. EU and EU member states are going to do all we can to make sure that everyone has alternatives. Again, Czech Republic found a way. There is really no reason why countries that are in a very similar situation like Slovakia or just a further out Hungary can find a way as well. Again, with the support from the EU, because it's so clear that we all need to get off any energy relationship with Russia, given the murderous use that these funds then get, that they get funded in the war in Ukraine.
I would like us to take a moment to listen to some data that comes from the Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air. Quote, despite a range of sanctions and the threat posed by dependence on Russian energy in the third year of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, EU imports of Russian fossil fuels in particular remain largely unchanged, totaling to 21.9 billion euros, a 6% year-on-year drop in value, but merely 1% year-on-year drop in volumes. That's February. Now let's move on to August. The EU was the fourth largest buyer of Russian fossil fuels, accounting for 8%, 1.2 billion euro of Russia's exports revenues from the top 5 importers. The majority of imports, 66%, consisted of LNG and pipeline gas, followed by crude oil at 32%. So the EU plans to introduce the 19th package of sanctions that is going to target these very energy sectors, but it's still largely buying from Russia. So how is this going to change after and if we're going to see that 19th package of sanctions being adopted?
Look, we need to do better, Europe as a whole, right? Poland is actually in a great example of countries that were able to wind off from Russian energy sources, and many others did as well. It was a shock for many of our other European partners and allies when Russia attacked Ukraine and when they cut off their energy transport, and when Europe made it very clear that we need to wind off quickly from Russian energy sources. This 19th package goes another step closer to a full independence from Russian gas and oil eventually as well. So it is a step-by-step process. Some countries are doing great, and here Poland is one of them, while others, especially Hungary, to some extent Slovakia, are lagging behind. But this package will bring us another step closer to the independence that right now also is very much politically supported, as you said. Energy independence from Russia, supported by the United States.
So why do you think that the US is actually quite reluctant, as we've seen based on weeks past, to impose sanctions on Russia? What is Donald Trump actually waiting for?
Look, this is an excellent question it should be directed to American administration and
I suppose so, but I wanted to get your opinion on it.
Sure. I used to be a think tanker and an expert that could speculate at free about motivations of government officials. I don't have the same leisure and the same freedom that I have right now. I'm not sure if I would fully agree with your statement. Either. We are seeing pressure coming from the United States. We are talking here about also a nudge to Europe to make sure that we get off of any energy relationship with Russia. But I also see a Russian regime that is absolutely at this point ignoring the nudges and pressures and openings that come from across the Atlantic. So it's easier to comment on the reality that we are not seeing the move toward peace or towards ceasefire from the Russian side. In fact, we are seeing an escalation today, escalation in Denmark, a few days ago in Estonia, earlier in Romania and Poland, despite the overtures, diplomatic and otherwise, from the White House. So I hope that we see a culmination of these efforts coming from the Russian side, but I'm not holding my breath for the moment.
Now that you mentioned the most recent violations and alleged violations, because we don't have the details as of yet when it comes to Denmark and Norway, the situation of today, we will be reporting more on that. I would like us to listen to a soundbite by Diane Francis, a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council. I spoke to her yesterday, and this is what she had to say regarding the situation and the funding of the NATO movements. Let's listen.
Well, I think that not only should they be told point blank that no Russian aircraft should ever invade the airspace of a NATO country, and that they will be warned to get out immediately and if not, shot down. But I think also they should probably charge the Russian government for the cost of scrambling all the jets so far, when all the countries have had to scramble them to get up there to shoo them away. And this includes Poland and Estonia and Romania and all the ones that have had to do this.
So do you think that the EU and NATO members are actually going to take that piece of advice and possibly maybe look into the coffers of the frozen Russian assets stored in Belgium to be able to cover the cost of these actions if we're going to see more violations on the Russian side?
Look, let me start by saying that it's critically important that we finally get to a clear solution when it comes to providing, especially Ukraine, with funds from the frozen Russian assets and assets of the aggressor that is on a daily basis destroying Ukrainian cities, Ukrainian civilians, and Ukrainian economy. We are getting closer. This is clear that we are getting closer. I can't go into too many details, but I'm seeing a forward movement after many months and now years of a debate. But the primary recipient of these funds, not only from when it comes to the percentage points, but actually when it comes to principle, should be Ukraine. Whether NATO charges Russia for those military operations countering Russian drones and less Russian jets. That I like the idea. That's not necessarily where the priority would be at this point. What we clearly are building is both the defense but also deterrence capability, making it more costly for Russia to continue with their aggressions, hybrid aggressions, and now escalating further and further. The cost of it can be, those are more difficult in security terms rather than in financial terms. I think the Russian assets need to start rebuilding Ukraine cities and Ukrainian industry.
And we're going to put a full stop there. Thank you very much. Michał Baranowski, Polish Deputy Minister of Development and Technology, was my guest tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so this would be all the latest news for now here on World News Tonight. I'm Klaudia Czerwińska. Thank you very much for joining, and I hope to see you back here on TVP World for more.